Hello class. This is the video presentation for philosophy. The book I chose to do this over was Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, wherever you want to say it. There he is right there. And I like this little book. This was a gift. This book was gifted to someone named Christine in 1917. There's a little write-up in there. I don't know if you can see it. But in 1917, so this is a 100-year-old book. It's been given knowledge to people for a long time. But I decided to do my reading with this book, Beyond Good and Evil, and touch on a few things that I got out of the little bit of the first chapter that I have tried to contemplate, tried to understand. He's really touching on a big concept, a driver on humankind in this. If I had to guess, the purpose and point of this book was to begin to draw a line of motivation, human motivation. And in this first chapter, he's drawing a line of that human motivation called the will to truth, or an understanding of human curiosity. Why do we seek knowledge? And why do we value what we consider to be true over when what can be considered false is just as often useful in advancing us as a species or advancing our own self-interests? And how do we get those values? Where do they come from? And are they just simply a vacuous tension between that which isn't true and that which is, and we pick which is more relativism position? So that will to truth is that inherited motivation to seek the divinely useful and purely consistent understanding of something, right? Whatever it is, a bit of wisdom that's timeless, a understanding of an objective truth, a fact, as simple as it is. We're constantly searching for these bits of useful truisms and truths and various interpretations of what is true and what is objectively fact. And why? Why do we do that? And how useful is it to us? And how close do we get to understanding what is true and what isn't true? So the idea being the relativity of humankind's understanding of truth and what is and what isn't true is populated, is formed by deeply prejudiced, instinctively informed assumptions, or a priori, of all major ethical and moral teachings, as articulated by the philosophers who decided to formulate these ideas. They make these ethical structures akin to the carefully justified opinions of their own minds. That being said, I have a few assumptions, I have a few motivations. They are inherited, they are deeply motivated, they're poorly understood, but then I use all of my conscious faculties to justify them, and then to create an entire system that imposes upon Mother Nature my beliefs and my understandings. And then, once I get enough people rhetorically on board with my beliefs and my understandings, I can make it sound like that was the natural truth of the matter, that my simple presumption and inherited motivation and instinct is now true because you can't out-argue me, because I have taken the time to pull together my own, poorly created ideas upon the world through clever articulation. That in the end, all articulated or civilized justifications of the machinations of life is itself an unnatural aberration of the indifference symbolized by the spirit of nature, the very force of indifference and injustice and unfairness and chaos and barbarism that is nature, right? Dog-eat-dog world that is nature, the will to power that is nature. The philosopher belies their unphilosophical ambition when their convictions arrive on the scene of their worldview. So here's the point of everything I got out of that first 15 pages. He comes up with this beautiful bit of Latin to malign most will-to-truth type philosophical thinking. And he says this: Adventavit, asinus, pulcher et fortissimus. The ass arrives, beautiful and most brave. And the simple concept there is, at one point or another, in every philosophical framework, the philosopher's deeply held convictions, often described as unphilosophical, uncivilized, and poorly articulated, not usually very logical, have to come to the forefront, forcing most philosophical concepts to be pretty superfluous descriptions and biographies of the dirty little secrets formulated by the mind that came up with their ideas, whether that be Kant or Schopenhauer or Nietzsche, right? Doesn't matter. So Adventavit asinus pulcher et fortissimus. The ass arrives, beautiful and most brave. The very underpinning of every philosophical utterance, and therein arguably every major collective and individual manifestation, is the direct result of very unphilosophical justifications made from self-delusions and self-deceptions, wrapped in glorious articulations and presented in gilded wrappings. Despite the obvious fact that we all must live by some understanding of the intangible, often arguable truth, none of it really is an exercise to understand said truth. If I had to guess, this book is going to be a long, foundational teaching of why it's easier to change the resolution from looking at what is true to what is useful. And that's very often the case with many relativists, many nihilists, and in this case I don't think Nietzsche is either a relativist or a nihilist, but that's what he's starting. He's starting the game of saying, why are we bothering to use the language we poorly understand about truth and about divine interventions of truth and its use and its practicality, and instead focus on what is useful, what is practical, why do we even have these concepts. So it's going to be an interesting read to see if he builds it up into anything else. I hope you're as confused as I am. He's like very much so like trying to read through a self-argument when you're reading his work, but it's fun nonetheless. I'm enjoying it, so we'll see where it goes, and I hope your book was half as entertaining as mine was trying to parse through. So have a good one.